In this lesson, we will begin simulating our character sweater. Let's get started by hiding all objects that would be a distraction right now. So that's going to be our character's cords tied to the sweater. Let's go to our display layers and hide them. We'll worry about them later. We'll also hide the character's t-shirt. It will not influence the sweater at all. And that may mean that we'll have some interpenetration issues, but I'll show you a technique for dealing with those type of issues a little bit later on. That's to be discussed towards the end of this course. So we'll go ahead and hide the t-shirt. Later I'll show you a technique that was used to glue the t-shirt to the character's skin, and that's actually the technique that we'll use to help simulate the pants with. So that's going to be another really neat topic. But since we don't need to be concerned with the pants just yet, I'm going to go ahead and hide those as well. And the next thing we'll need to check for is our frame rate. So underneath preferences, let's make sure that our playback speed is set to play every frame. Maya will need every frame to simulate our clothing successfully. So we'll just go ahead and make sure that that has been saved. There's also another parameter that we'll need to check for, but we'll worry about that after we've created our cloth object. So I'm going to go ahead and head over to the nDynamics module. And before we convert our sweater to an nCloth object, let's go ahead and head over to our outliner and perspective view. Underneath panel, save layouts, we'll go ahead and choose that layout so we can keep track of the nodes we create and access them faster. So watch, when we select our sweater, we can now choose nMesh, create nCloth. I'll go to the options and reset the settings. So notice the two at the top, local space and world space. Local space causes both the input mesh and output mesh to follow the same simulation, and it ties them both to our nucleus node. Whereas with the world space type, this only affects the output mesh. The output mesh is essentially the mesh that is being simulated. What's nice is that we can use the input mesh to help correct the simulation of the output mesh. We'll take a look at that property a little bit later on, but it's not something that we will need for our sweater. So again, for the world space type, typically you won't use it unless your cloth has already been cached out and you need to create more nCloth effects. We do want the system to create a new solver for us, so let's go ahead and choose Create Cloth. We have two new nodes added. Here's our nucleus node, and this is what drives the dynamic behavior of all nCloth objects. So it's pretty important. Let's go ahead and rename this to nucleus_pig01. And then here is our actual nCloth object tied to the sweater. Let's go ahead and rename this to nCloth_sweater_pig01. All right, so what we can do now is hit play just to take a look at what will happen. So you can see that our sweater will start to fall way too slowly. You can also see that our character does not interact with this surface at all, so we need to do a few things to make this happen. First, let's go ahead and work on the sweater speed. Now, when working with nCloth, it's designed to work with a unit type of meters. But by default, in Maya, we work with centimeters. Let's head over to our preferences, settings, and you can see that right here that, again, we're working with centimeters. That's the unit type the character was built to. So we have a few options. We could always go back to our settings and switch our unit type to meters, or another way is to edit the global scale from our nucleus node. So let's go ahead and select it, and we'll press Ctrl-A to head over to our attribute editor. You'd want to scroll all the way down until you find your scale attributes. Let's make sure we expand this list, and you can see that we have two parameters here, and what we need to be concerned with here is the space scale. So again, nCloth works with meters, but our character has been built to centimeters. So what we could always do is do a little bit of math. We know that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So in order to have our value here be converted to something that would be useful for centimeters, it'd simply be a matter of using 1/100th of the value. So that'd be 0.01. All right, great. So now, if we were to hit play, you'll notice that our cloth will start to fall much faster and more naturally. Very exciting. Okay, so that's one issue resolved. Now, as far as the cloth interacting with our character, well, this is very easy to do. It's just a matter of selecting the surface that we would need to convert into a rigid body object. And then from there, we'd head over to EndMesh, and we'll find that right at the top, Create Passive Collider. Going to the options, we can go ahead and choose to have this tied to our current solver, which is our nucleus node here, or we can create a new solver. We're going to go ahead and, of course, have this tied to our pig solver. So we'll choose now Make Collide, and watch. Instantly, you'll see that our cloth is going to now react to our character. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop this after a few frames. You can see that our values right now are very loose and not something that would resemble a sweater. However, what's neat is that we can do is have the cloth rest on our rigid surface just to create an initial state. So let's say if we wanted something a little bit looser than what we had on our initial frame. What we could do is go ahead and run the solve with our character in its neutral pose, and then we can select our sweater here and head over to End Solver, Initial State, Set from Current, which will again set the current state of the selected cloth object as the initial state, which is really cool, but not too cool in our case because we need our cloth to start at this point here. But you have that option of creating a new initial state. All right, so let's go ahead and rename our rigid object. It's going to be rigid underscore pig01. And this would be a good stopping point. So now that we have an idea of how EndCloth is set up for our cloth objects, in the next lesson, we'll start to adjust the sweater's behavior so it feels more like a sweater.